Learning a musical instrument is such a wonderful lifelong hobby, and I'm often asked by parents, when should my child start learning a musical instrument and what instrument should they learn? And this is a difficult question because if you do research on the internet or you talk to an instrumental teacher, you will find that you get varying answers because there is no one correct answer. Often it depends on age, height, and also academic progress. So today I'm going to share with you some really good practice that I've seen over the last 25 years. My name is Rachel Hardman and I run Passionate About Music Education. I've been a teacher for 25 years working in the UK and internationally. And not only have I taught instruments myself within the classroom, but I've also worked with some amazing instrumental teachers. So this is good practice that I've seen and I hope it helps. So I'm going to start with the string family, the violin, viola, cello and double bass, because these tend to be the instruments that students start on at the younger ages. And why the string family is so brilliant for children from age 3 upwards is two reasons. The first reason is you can buy all of these instruments in different sizes. So you have the quarter, the half size, the 3/4 and the full size. For our smallest children of 3 and upwards, this is perfect because they can get an instrument that fits their height and their arm length, and as they grow and develop through the music program, they will then move on to a quarter size, half size, 3/4, and by the time they get to senior school, usually about year 8, year 9, so that's sort of 13, 14, they tend to be at this point on a full size instrument. The second reason is there is a method called the Suzuki method, which is very popular amongst string teachers, particularly when they're teaching group lessons at that beginner stage, because it's all about ear training and following directions and playing as an ensemble and really training the ear. Slightly less focused on note reading at that early stage, but definitely focused on playing ensembles music and playing by ear. And I've had some fantastic music students coming through GCSE and A-level IB who have come through the Suzuki method. There are of course other violin teachers who don't use that method, who might do a more traditional note reading course. Both are equally as good and produce the end results exactly the same. But you do find the string family is brilliant for those younger ages because of those two reasons. The other stringed instrument is the guitar, and you find that lots of students want to learn the guitar, and really around year 5 is sort of 9 is a fantastic age to start. And again, it does come in a 3/4 size, the acoustic, and then full size, and that you need to get guidance from a guitar specialist on which size would suit your child. Depends on their height and their arm length. Generally, we like to encourage students to start on acoustic guitar and learn some good technique on it and then move to electric. But again, it will depend on your guitar teacher. You find they might say that they can go straight onto electric guitar. Again, none of these methods are wrong. One of the things to think about with guitar is there are many different ways of learning the guitar. So you have rock, you have tab, you have chords, you have Spanish guitar acoustic playing with strumming and finger picking. There are many different methods, and you need to kind of look into what that teacher specialises in and if that's the kind of guitar playing your child wants to learn. The Woodwind family, my particular favourite. Everybody starts on the recorder because it's such an easy instrument to learn and it's very, very cheap. So you find lots of students in primary school tend to start recorder. Generally, you find that most schools start students in sort of that year 3, year 4 age. And a recorder is a really fantastic instrument because it is the starting point to move on to other woodwind instruments. So you find lots of students go to the flute, the clarinet, or the saxophone, the oboe, or the bassoon, because a lot of the fingering that you have on the recorder where you play BAG with your left hand then easily correlates to the other woodwind instruments. In terms of the flute, you have to be careful at what age you start the flute because it's quite a long instrument and can get very heavy. So you're kind of looking at year 5 upwards, but you can get a curved head. So instead of it being completely straight, you get the curved head, so it brings the flute a bit closer, which is fantastic for beginners. It also helps balance the weight. So I strongly recommend, if you've got a young child who wants to do flute, to go the curved head route on the flute. Some people use the fife method until they big enough to play on a full-size flute, again, have that discussion with your flute teacher, but I really recommend not getting them, if they're having to stretch here and they can't really hold it, they're best waiting another 6 months until they can hold and balance it or get the curved head. In terms of the clarinet, again, year 5, year 6, you can get some plastic clarinets, which are actually pretty good. The Nouveau clarinets, I used them in my last school, and they're a great starting point. But if you can't get one of those and you go into a full-size clarinet, I would strongly recommend a strap for the younger students, particularly under year 6, because of the weight of the clarinet, and it becomes quite heavy, particularly on the thumbs, because you're balancing it. So that would help a student progress really quickly. Saxophone, the alto is like the most common that people learn out of the saxophone family, but they are heavy. So again, in terms of strain on the neck and the shoulders and the weight of it, you need a really good strap, and I really wouldn't start them until sort of year 6, year 7. And again, it depends on the height. I mean, if they're a really tall year 6, they'll be fine with it, but if they're really short, they might find it too heavy and lose interest. And that's the danger. If you start some children too soon on these instruments, they get frustrated because it's too heavy, it's too long, and they can't make a good sound, and then they give up. So these are general guidance. Again, it will depend on the size of your child, the age of your child, the academic progress they're making, and the advice of the specialist teacher you are going to be using. In terms of brass, you tend to find sort of year 5, year 4 if they go into a cornet or a trumpet. And then as they go up through the school, they tend to then move on to the bigger instruments like the trombone or the euphonium or the tuba, because again, they're quite heavy instruments and they require a lot of diaphragm control and a lot of air breathing. So again, you'll probably find the teacher starts them off on one of the smaller brass instruments and then moves them onto a different one as they progress. In terms of keyboard and percussion, we find a lot of primary schools now are offering drum lessons or djembe drumming, and that's perfectly fine. In terms of drum kit, again, maybe sort of year 4, 5, and it's coordination, height, but you might find that they start on snare drum and then move to the full kit. I tend to find actually a lot of students going into year 7 are really then ready to play the full-size drum kit. Ukulele is another really popular little instrument, and because of the size of it and the sort of combination of the strings, it would be a great instrument sort of for the sort of year 5 onwards. And you find a lot of primary schools are now bringing that into the curriculum and using the ukulele, so they'll do a lot of tuned percussion, and then they'll go to recorders, and if they're not able to offer band program or choral program, they may well offer ukulele, and then as they go up to middle school, high school, then they might bring in a guitar program. And of course, finally, there's the piano, which is a wonderful instrument, and again, if you go on YouTube, you'll see some piano sensations at the age of 3, 4, 5, and then you'll find some teachers who won't start them at that age because they're too young in terms of coordination, finger strength, and reading notation. In my experience, students starting to learn the piano to make quick and good progress is around that sort of year 3, year 4 age. And if they're really good at reading and writing academic work, then you'll find that they pick up reading music very quickly and that they will progress and practice. You do find students who start much younger, who are 4 years old, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of their progress, you might find that they don't make that much progress. However, there are some teachers who start students sort of at 4 years old on the piano and make great progress. For the really young students, group singing, group music making, some of the music centres is a really great option to get them into the enjoyment of the music making and rhythm playing and clapping. And you'll find a lot of your local music centres or music schools will have those programs, sort of the mini music makers series. So if you've got a really young child and you want them to get passionate about music, that would be a really great way to go. So my advice is general advice, because as I said, you'll find each teacher tells you something slightly different, and of course if you Google it on the internet, it'll tell you something slightly different. My advice is always to talk to the teacher and think about the height of your child, the arm length, how they're doing academically in school, and whether you actually have time to practice on a regular basis, because that really is essential, that even if they're learning the piano, they can make great progress really quickly if they are practicing. But if they don't have time to go and reinforce what they've learned in their lesson, then the progress is going to be really slow regardless of age. I hope you found this really helpful in when to start your child on music lessons. It is a rewarding hobby that will last them for a lifetime, and for many of us it's turned into an amazing career. I'd like to do more of these parent advice about music education, so if there's any questions you have, please leave them in the comments and I will of course then address that in some future videos. Thank you for joining me. My name is Rachel Hardman and I run Passionate About Music Education.